good evening, everyone. Welcome back once again to Seattle's Civil War Legacy. Tonight, I'm really happy to be joined by John Heckman, the tattooed historian, and we're going to take things in a slightly different direction. We don't really have a particular historic topic or anything specific that we're going into, other than to talk to John about his experience and brand with the tattooed historian and digital history in this era in general, and just kind of see where it goes. So hopefully you guys will just get something of value, entertaining, educational, and hopefully interesting. So John, let's learn about who you are. So give us a little background on where you're from, just the basic kind of questions of how you got interested in history, or what your particular starting point was.
Sure, my friend. Let me just say right off the bat, thank you for having me on. And second, it's wild to be on the other side of this equation, because usually I'm the one. And so
Yeah.
People's turn. It's like, wow, okay, now I got to get used to fielding questions instead of just shouting them out. So it's great. It's great to be doing that, though. But I grew up in South Central Pennsylvania, and I grew up 25 miles from Gettysburg. I actually grew up in Chambersburg, Pennsylvania, which is the only northern town destroyed by Confederates during the war. It was burned in 1864, and I kind of was surrounded by history, and I grew up in a home where my father left when I was around 5 years old, and I was really trying to find my ways, so to speak, early in life, and try to find like father figures or people just to look up to find out what to do right and how to do right and what not to do. And I went to the pages of history at a young age. I think I was around 8 years old. First went to Gettysburg when I was 7. I was there for the 125th anniversary, and my dad took me on a visitation, and I don't know why he took me, because he was never into history, but we ended up there. And the rest is history, because it was a thing that just got planted within me, where I wanted to know why people were so engrossed in a field with a bunch of monuments on it, and I kind of was hooked from that point on. And
Did you
went on to get more training later? So.
Sure. So when you were young and you were going to Gettysburg, because that's kind of how it started for me too, having grown up in central New Jersey and spending a lot of time in southeastern Pennsylvania and so on, and going to Gettysburg a lot. I remember the little booklets that we could get. I think they were probably printed in the 60s, but in the mid 70s we could still get them. Yep. And a little plastic sword with a jewel on the end of the sword handle, and the felt kepis with the little Confederate flag or whatever sticker on them. So I'm assuming you were kind of that same era, being the same age. Right. And I just remember being really hooked by that stuff, and the cyclorama was, that was life-changing for me, was standing in front of that thing over and over. So yeah, I know how captivating and important that can be. As a young person, for sure. So where did you, when you decided to pursue an education, what was your, were you leaning towards that in high school already, or focusing on that, or how did it go as you progressed into college?
Yeah, I was leaning hard on, I wanted to be a history teacher. And my family was basically like, well, teachers are a dime a dozen. So if you want employment, follow our lead. And they're like, well, we're paying for your education, so you're going to go for accounting. And so I went and I earned a 2-year degree in accounting, which I think forced me to drink a little more than I should have. And it just drove me crazy. And I received my degree, and it kind of went nowhere. I was 21 years old when I got my degree, and I ended up working blue-collar jobs that had nothing to do with my degree, just because I needed a job. And I grew up in an area hardcore warehousing, construction, stuff like that. And that's what I did. I actually worked the summer in a cemetery. I didn't go back to university until I was in my late 20s, and I earned my bachelor's degree And then I took about a semester off, and I went and got back into school and got my graduate degree in 2013. So it was a long road. I was 32 when I earned my master's degree, and I was 30 when I earned my bachelor's degree. So I had a lot of life experience in the center where there's a lot of hard knocks going on there.
Yeah, yeah. Where did you wind up getting your bachelor's and master's from?
I've earned both my degrees from Shippensburg, University of Pennsylvania, in Shippensburg.
Oh, okay. I thought so.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm a ship grad. Yeah.
Well, lots of I don't necessarily say my peers, but friends here in the social media history world all seem to come out of there too. So it's a good place to have come from, I think.
Yeah, there are plenty of them.
Now, after that, when you decide, you jump ship on accounting, which my father was an accountant. Unfortunately, I didn't get pushed into that direction, but I could see that life and have been like, yeah, maybe that's not going to be the best for me.
Yeah.
And so I do know that you have a background prior to the tattooed historian work as being an archivist or working in archival sciences or what is that? So tell us a little bit about that, because I think that's probably the transition between Shippensburg and the tattooed historian, right? Is your work in archives?
Yeah, because I came out of my graduate degree in May of 2013, and I did not gain gainful employment until I was hired by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers in 2014 to take part in an archival assessment project. It was a contract at the U.S. Army Heritage and Education Center in Carlisle, Pennsylvania. Our job was to go through the archival holdings, both paper and photographic, and we had to assess them archivally. It's pretty self-explanatory, but we had to make sure it was still in a good state of affairs. It was housed properly. There was no mold or infestations or anything like that of paper and photographic holdings. We had to our full contract said that we had to go through 35,000 paper collections, not just boxes, collections. And some of those collections had 2 boxes, some had 100 boxes in them. And we had 6,000 linear feet, over 6,000 linear feet of photographs to go through. So it was a multi-million-dollar, multi-year operation. And about 3 months in, I became on-site team lead for the project. So I was kind of the go-between between myself and the district office of the Corps of Engineers. So it was quite an undertaking.
Well, yeah, that's a lot of responsibility too, to be in that kind of a transition between the unknown state of a collection of that size to a permanent assessment and care. Were you lining up like ideas, recommendations for care and that sort of stuff if you found things that were in not being cared for or in bad condition?
Yeah, we had historians on the team and trained archivists on the team. And what we were doing is we were saying, okay, this needs to be better archivally housed, or it's fine. And then what we were also doing is we were preparing for a large database to be made. So we had to give the historiography or historical background, I should say, of each collection. So that was how the historians came into play.
Yeah. So did you find that work to be inspiring or interesting because you got to handle those materials, or was it a little bit kind of like the role you were in with handling those materials made it so objective that it wasn't enjoyable anymore? Like that seems like the kind of job where you'd be like, oh, this is great, I get to go through hundreds of photos, but I don't get to sit down and research and look at and count buttons and do all that kind of stuff.
That was the toughest part. There is definitely a honeymoon phase where you're like, wow, I can't believe I'm doing this. I can't believe I'm holding this letter signed by Clara Barton, and I'm holding these orders by William Tecumseh Sherman and whatever else. There is that period. But then it's just like every other job where you're just so used to it month after month after month. And it's sad to say it that way. People would love to hold a letter. Like I held a document written by John Buford like weeks before he died. and it was like,
Wow.
this is just amazing stuff. And it kind of was disappointing in a way when you think of it professionally, because you get so used to it that it's just an everyday occurrence. It's like, oh yeah, another Claire Barton letter. Oh yeah, there's John Philip Sousa's signature. So you do have the honeymoon phase where it's like, wow, this is amazing, this is great. And then you have the period of, okay, I'm still physically stuck in a cubicle. And for me, that was very tough.
Yeah. I would imagine too, if you're inclined to want to do something with the things that you're finding, like, wow, this letter would be great to write about or to talk about or put into context of some other kind of research. But if you're literally just checking a number and checking the condition and putting it in the box and moving on, I can see how that would almost be disappointing after a while, actually.
Yeah, I have the brain that goes like 110 miles per hour, but I'm very calm on the outside. But my brain is constantly thinking about, how do I perceive this and how do I talk about it or how do I present it? And so it's very hard to put me into a cubicle and be like, you can't talk about this, with the general public, because that's what the education department's for. This is all you can do. And so that's why the whole Tattooed Historian brand was born, was because it was my release.
Yeah. So let's talk about that. So obviously you're not working in the archives now at the moment.
Right.
So you made a transition out of that. So without getting too much into that necessarily, when you decided you wanted to pursue this project, the Tattooed Historian, I got about 50 different questions on this. So we'll see how one starts. But so when you're sitting there thinking, man, I want to do something else, was this exactly the thing you were wanting to do? Or were you sort of thinking, this isn't the fit for me, and let me see what I can, if I throw some darts here, maybe something will hit? Or did you really think I want to be involved in the presentation side of being a historian, the public facing side, so to speak? Did you know that right off the bat when you were leaving the archives that this is what I want to do, this is where I'm going?
Well, I started the brand in the cubicle 2.5 years before I left the cubicle. So it was my way of presenting what I was doing in my job and showcasing documents that we were finding and really cool photographs I'd never seen before and all that. And it was basically my way of trying to find the next job, because I'm like, hey, LinkedIn's not the sexiest thing out here. Let's use Facebook to our advantage and showcase something and be like, maybe someone watching is going to be able to hire me or whatever the case may be. So it started out as basically a way for me to network with other historians and historical entities. And it kind of took on a life of its own, because I remember, my first 40 followers were like 40 of my friends, and that was great. And I got up to 100, and I'm like, wow, maybe someone's gonna see it and go from there. And then we started getting into over 1,000, and it started to get a life of its own. And I decided in 2018 to break off and kind of get this grand idea of, we're going to make it a digital history brand that's more educationally based, but in the field itself, whether that be on a battlefield or at a historic site or in a pub. We're going to take it to the masses and make it a reality.
Yeah. So did you have were there people on social or on YouTube or anything that you were looking at as a model at that point? Because what's that? I know you just said it, but I forget. How many years now have you been? 5, 6 on the Tattooed Historian?
6 years.
6 years. Yeah. So 6 years ago, were there people that you looked at and thought, oh man, I like what they're doing, I want to model my game after that person's? Or did it actually just really organically happen from that, you trying to just network out, like you said?
It was more organic. It was more natural. I knew that, the bigger entities like the American Battlefield Trust and other places were doing their own thing, and we were obviously seeing that online. But I wasn't really paying attention to a lot of others who were doing it independently. It's hard for me to watch other people do their work, only because I don't want to end up copying it accidentally 6 months later. I like to kind of stay in my lane, and I know then if I have blinders on, I can kind of create my own thing. And I think that's how I started too, where I was just like, I'm just going to do what is natural for me, just like the name is natural for me. It's going to be authentically me, and we're gonna take it from there.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because when I got involved with starting this project, mine was kind of the opposite. Like I was reconnecting with history, so to speak, via Facebook, and something I had kind of neglected for a while, and started reading again, and was like, wow, I'm gonna. Oh, Suzanne put a really timely comment here,
Thank you.
and so I was, reading books again, and I was like, man, I forgot how much I love this. And I started reconnecting with people on Facebook, people that I had been involved with in reenacting years, 20, 30 years ago or whatever, and sort of feeling it. And I started to realize, like, wow, there's this whole ecosystem of historians here that are doing things and sharing things. And I think I've probably told you about this before. There was a series of live streams you did, I guess, for about a year and a half now, because this is pre-pandemic, I think, where you were out on the Gettysburg battlefield, and you were at the McPherson barn, and you were at the Rose Farm, I think, and maybe the Peach Orchard, a couple spots, and it was the first time I had seen anybody do that, where I was like, wow, I didn't know this was a thing. Like I can, and you did several during the day, like an hour later you did another one. You said, hey, come back in an hour, I'll be at this other place. And I just all day, okay, another hour, let me see what the tattooed historian's doing. And it was captivating, and I didn't realize that people were doing that. And that's where I thought, well, why not me? I'm interested and I'm passionate about this stuff. I could do my little, maybe get 50 people to follow my little project before. But just that, so mine, it was I was following the example very much of what you were doing and what other people were doing, of course, wanting to do it with my own flavor. But it's, if I tried to start it when you did 5 or 6 years ago, I wouldn't have had those examples to look up to. And so it's interesting to know that you started with a different intent than what it actually kind of ended up being, because it organically did what it did.
It's one of those things, Richard, where I hate to have like 5-year goals for the brand, because it seems like every 3 to 6 months there's a transition, especially on social media, of attention and where we're heading in certain directions. And I don't like to get entrenched. I like to adapt, and I like being Gumby. We can stretch whichever way. If this is where the attention is now, we're going to go that way and do that. So I think that I have really grown as a presenter in 6 years, and I've really grown to understand my strength in 6 years. But I have a lot that I'm like still planning. I literally have a tablet full of ideas that I haven't even touched yet, and it's like, it's not time. I'll know when the time is right to do that. So So that's very kind too.
When you say that about kind of finding what you're good at in that regard as a presenter, when you think back on 6 years of work now, can you really see how you've grown and adapted that way of, like, I tried this and I wasn't really very good at it, or maybe I tried this kind of video content and it just fell flat and I left it behind, and I'd like to hear about some of that too, because we know what works, because we see what you continue to do. But I'm curious about some of the things that you tried and just didn't fit for you or the brand or your audience.
Yeah, there's been a couple things, and it's very strange to say it sometimes, because people won't realize it. When you see it from the outside, you may not realize it. One is, I am bad with podcasts, and people are like, "We love your podcast," and I'm like, "I don't do it enough." I'm terrible with it, because what I love to do is I love to rip the audio from previous stuff and present it in that way. I don't like to sit in front of a mic and like pontificate about historical stuff and like do my own research and then be like, we're going to script this out and do it. My strength, Richard, is in live stuff. I will do it
Yeah.
live. I'll do it in the moment. And it's very hard for me to do podcasting. I think the last time I actually sat down and did a podcast myself, I did 45 minutes on like the brand history and like I think it was like my second year. And we talked about how the brand had kind of changed and what I saw for it going forward. And I literally sat down without a script and talked for 45 minutes because I can only do it without a script. So scripts are my weaknesses. Don't hand me a script. I can't do it. My brain does not compute that. My brain says, Richard, give me a question about something and I will go. And so some people work with me who like that kind of thing where I'm like, what would you like to do? And I'll just go with it. The other thing is some video content for me is a little tough when we have to edit a lot of stuff together. That's just because I was never trained how to video edit. I had to go to the University of Google, and I had to the University of YouTube, so to speak, and I had to teach myself because in grad school I never learned any of the digital history stuff. I'm self-taught in that way. So sometimes that makes things a little bit more challenging.
Yeah. So that's a really good segue to a point that wasn't exactly what I had in mind for right now, but it's that when you come into things with a specific education, a master's degree that's on in the field, but you come into it from a different angle like that, where we're in this era now where I keep seeing people say that it's skills over degrees now, and that the resources are so widespread for people to teach themselves things and develop different skill sets. And I know that can be a great source of friction within the field and resistance and difficulty. But then also people can really want to work with you because you have learned the things that they don't know how to do. And I know you've partnered up with many people who I'm sure come to you because of that skill set that you've developed by yourself. Do you think there's the new generation is coming out with these kind of skills in hand, like when you come out with a degree in public history, that they're prepared to do things like video editing and podcasts and that sort of stuff, or is it still you got to be interested and passionate and then still kind of launch out there and figure it out for yourself? How do you see it shaping out especially versus 5 or 6 years ago when you started?
As far as digital history is concerned and presenting history, it's never been a better time to do it. It's the best time to be doing it because it's easier every single month to do it. It's easy now to create a podcast. It's easy to do a live stream. It's easy to do a video edit because everything is on our phones now. It's the remote control of life. We can find an app to do everything we need to do, and we can move forward from there. So the younger historians who are, let's say, undergraduate right now, or they're in high school and they're thinking about getting into history as a field, they are better prepared for this moment than we are, because we grew up with like the Apple II GS and the Sega Genesis, and I was like, we didn't have smartphones when we were initially getting interested in this stuff. So, and we didn't have YouTube, and we didn't have anything else. And that's not to say we're better. That's just to say that we weren't as prepared for this moment as the 16, 17, 18-year-olds are right now. So the power and the kind of like the control of the next phase of the field is in their hands. And some people will cringe at that, but I love it. I embrace that. And I think that we need to be embracing those technologies and understanding that. And I need to get, more in tune with TikTok than I probably thought I ever would, or whatever else. But that's because we're looking for that attention. And the next generation of historians is already working on that.
Yeah. So they just have that innate skill set just naturally. So they're not going to have to go to the University of Google, like you said, to figure out how to edit, splice video together because they've already been doing it for their videos since they were 8 years old. Yeah.
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 There are 14-year-olds who can create better videos in 30 seconds than I can in 10 minutes. And that's what the challenge is going to be. Now, we can either complain about that, or we can say, well, let's learn how to do that and reach out.
Yeah. So you don't feel threatened by those kind of advances and different things, and like the emergence of TikTok. That's a tough one. You know, I use that app a lot, but posting on it is tough. I just haven't quite found the feel for it yet. And I know there's a lot of people put up a guard about that and then cut off a whole new potential audience for that reason, because it's almost sort of threatening. So I guess what I'd like to ask you about that is, did you feel that when you were finding traction with Facebook and YouTube and podcasts from other historians, and maybe you still do, I don't know, I think maybe that they're softening. And how do you feel about, what you see coming up and maybe going past you? It moves quick. Right.
I definitely had blowback when I first started out, and especially the first year, 2 years. I had a lot of blowback from well-entrenched historians who had been in the field for 10, 20 years. They were writing me angry emails and private messaging me on Facebook and saying that I was ruining history, or I was just a Facebook historian, or whatever that means. I don't know. My history isn't in the history of Facebook. But I would always write back, I'm sorry you feel that way. Perhaps you should just, look at what I'm doing and go from there. But it was the whole group of people who are never satisfied with taking the next step. I found them to be the ones who loved, they had been entrenched, they had been published, they were set. And when they have something new come out, there's that little bit of a threatening kind of thing, like, is this person treading on my territory? And that's something I always despised in any field. We see it in every field. And I think that's where that comes from. That has grown less and less. And I truly believe, Richard, that's because of our experience with the pandemic. I was doing live stream interviews a few years ago, and people were like, why would I want to come on and talk about that on Facebook? My audience isn't there. And then all of a sudden the pandemic hits, and now the entire audience is there, or they're on YouTube, or they're on Instagram, or whatever else. So we're seeing this change in how the field is perceived. We still see that kind of thing where we have those who still believe that, magazines are the only way to reach a new audience or whatever. And I'm just like, digital media is the way to do it. And we're always going to have that because we're creators. I know one story you said to me privately, you had the same situation with one person, possibly more. I never asked. I don't need to know. But we both have received some blowback in certain ways from different angles of the field, or people who perceive to be entrenched in the field. And it's always funny. I keep the screenshots, I keep the emails, because it drives me to be like, it's not about angering people, it's about angering the right people. And they shouldn't be the ones to be teaching the kids history if that's their attitude.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's a good point. So what do you see for your sort of your future with that in mind, knowing that it's, the pandemic has shifted so much so quickly, and there's I had to throw that one up.
I'm an archivist. I keep notes.
Left a dozen of them here.
Good notes firsthand.
There's a kind of funny comment stream going here, but so with how things have shifted with the pandemic, audience wise, and how things are presented, and obviously there's going to be a long-term effect of this hybrid sort of thing going forward. But there's also new platforms that are like TikTok. I mean, we've just talked about that, and Dan mentioned it. It's exploding, and it's covering ground that no one thought it would cover. It's not just dance trends and whatever. It's like there's legitimate history content on there. People are doing long form videos and then I know you're involved with Twitch in gaming community, which that's completely foreign to me. So at this moment, how do you see yourself adapting to that? Do you have a strategy, or are you just gonna see how it goes, or where do we go from here?
That's a great question, Richard, because like I said, it's hard to plan out 6 months ahead of time. I know I'm going to be doing my in-person stuff in January, and we're going to move forward with that. But as far as the digital footprint, if I really think that if a historical brand or a museum or nonprofit is not on TikTok right now, they're already behind. Because your 14 to 18 demographic is on there. And 12 to 18 demographic is on there. They are ready to go, and they want to see different things. The Carnegie Museum of History is on there. Okay, so they're doing snail jokes on TikTok. Okay, and people are giving them like 50,000 likes because they like to see this guy come on and do snail jokes. All right, so we as historians can come on and do some really crazy stuff, but it's naturally us. Don't try to do something you're not. Be authentic, like we said. Yeah. But there's so much room out there for everybody who's into history to lay the groundwork for something, because there's a platform for your style to be in. Yeah. I grew up as a gamer. I grew up, like I said earlier, on the Apple II. I was playing Oregon Trail. I was playing Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego and all this other stuff. And I got into NES. I got into Sega. I got into Super Nintendo. And I got back into PC gaming. And my natural fit was to do history and historically based gaming. So I went over onto Twitch because that was kind of a thing that it was natural. And I think that's what everyone needs to understand, is that you have the ability now more than ever to find your medium, whether that is blogging, podcasting. There you go. Dan's on TikTok. He has a great TikTok, by the way. I'm jealous of his TikTok. But I'm very happy. But don't get me wrong, it's not a competition. And I want to touch on that here in a second, Richard, if you don't mind. Me too. But there's something for everybody out there, and there's a way for you to get your medium across. And I'm really, really happy to see all the ways we can do that. Don't be afraid to get outside your comfort zone. But I think that the reason why a lot of people don't create on Instagram as much, or they're not on TikTok, or they're not trying Twitch, is one, they think it sounds silly. And that leads to the point that I'm going to make, which is so many people are scared of judgment. They're scared of the judgment of other people. And we need to get over that hurdle and truly tell your story and be like, why are we doing this? Why do you want to do it? And what's your medium? And that's like Jen just said there. Instagram is offering a clip format with Reels. YouTube just came out with the same thing called Shorts. So if you don't like TikTok or the idea of TikTok, these other platforms are coming out with different versions of that. So you can, because they're all going to start copying each other. And Instagram sees TikTok is hot, they're going to do their thing. Facebook, same thing. So you have your different mediums to do that with.
So, that
thanks, John.
That idea of being afraid of judgment. I think that's a really good topic to take on now. The sort of personal angle of what it's like to do this, what it's like to do, put yourself out there in the way. And, we have had private conversations a little bit about some of the hate that we've received, the blowback, like you said, for our thing. And I always, the people that you get the most reaction from are the ones that are the least engaged in this kind of activity. Right. And I thought, you're accusing us of this, that, and the other, but we're like stripping down naked in front of everybody when you put this stuff out there,
Well,
right?
you don't have an
So
yet, but yes.
you know what I'm saying? When you put, and I have an extreme advantage in this department, having come from a career in the fine arts, where I have to spend months and months doing a painting, and then I put it up in a gallery in New York or Los Angeles, and sometimes get destroyed by it, and that's given me a pretty thick skin. But then when you go into something that's a new platform, and in order, even for me, it gets kind of scary. But the worst that happens is somebody doesn't like it, and it's sad when they let you know, and it's frustrating. Maybe they can kind of get you at the right angle sometimes, but just the fact that you can only get good at this, and you can only do it by trying it. And I find that anybody that has experience in that, anybody that's attempted to make a TikTok video that was a piece of crap that got 17 views, or started a Facebook page that didn't go anywhere, or whatever, it deserves so much more credit to me than anything, just for simply being willing to not be good at it and willing to fail. And I mean, some of my first writing for Seattle Civil War Legacy, I'd posted in a historians group on Facebook and got torched over and over, like, oh man, that's not what I meant to write. And but then you just keep trying, try again. So has that been a challenge for you, like negotiating that, especially when you try something like Twitch or TikTok, of putting something new out there that you're not comfortable with and trying it? How does that process go for you? Are you willing to try whatever, or do you still try to stick with something that is somewhat comfortable?
I do research on a platform before I do anything on it. I don't jump in full, 2 feet in. I kind of dip my toe for safety's sake. Especially now that the brand has gotten bigger, it's more foundational now. I just want to make sure we're on the right track, and this is where I want to go with that. However, I have received so much, well, not so much, but I've received enough negative feedback in the previous years where it goes in one ear and out the other. I've had people who I never would have thought would have had that side to them just immediately tell me that I don't know what I'm doing, blaming me for whatever is going wrong or whatever else. And it's just wild to see people's reactions. So when you experience that, that that's part of the territory, and you're going to get it whether you do some of the finest work ever done or whether you do a crappy blog post. You're going to still get some blowback from someone, because one, it's either going to be crap work and you're going to have to do it over again, or you're going to have a lot of people who think this is a competition. And and that has been my I guess I want to say strength in the whole thing. I never saw this as a competition. I am not competing with you. I'm not competing with Dan in the comments with his TikTok. I'm not competing with anybody. And certain people have come along through the years and tried to make it a competition. And it's like, you're going to lose simply because I'm not playing your game. And so you lose. Sorry, because this isn't a competition. I love to see people doing things their own way. Richard, you're going to do something. If we did the same exact topic, you are going to do it slightly different or bigly different than how I'm going to do it. And that's the beauty of history. As long as you get the history right, who cares? And it drives some people crazy when you don't want to play hardball with them, and they want that competitive kind of thing. And I'm just like, whatever, go your own way. So when I jump on these new platforms and I hear people say, well, that's stupid, or that's silly, or no one's going to go over there. I have heard that about Twitch a lot. And it's been hard for me to get my Facebook followers to go to Twitch, because a lot of them don't understand it, excuse me, or they don't have any experience with it. So it's been really interesting to see that. But when you can do one major thing, you start to realize that you'll be okay. And that's when, excuse me, I don't know why I'm breaking up. That's when you take the negative in one ear and out the other. And I have big enough ears that I still catch it, but I can put it out the other one. And you can take the positive as well. Because I think too many take the positive and they let it stick, and then their head starts to grow.
Yeah.
And there's where the problem is with that, because we have that ego issue in the field. We have this idolatry issue where we want to be exactly like another historian. I want to be the next insert historian here. And then we let the negative stick as well, because that stifles progress and it stifles us pushing forward. So I think that's the two things that we need to keep in mind, is that one, you win when it's not a competition, because you're doing your own thing. I'm not in competition with anybody. Richard's not in competition with anybody. We're doing our thing. We're jamming along, doing whatever it is. And two, you let both the negative and the positive go in one ear and out the other.
Yeah. Well, I'll say one thing that I've really enjoyed with that since I started this is I guess the community and the certain supportive aesthetic that I've really started to become more and more integrated with people that think like that and that do work and do have Facebook pages and TikToks and YouTubes and whatever. Is that I've noticed that now more that resistant type, the territorial types or the ego or whatever, those get kind of pushed aside because, like you said, nobody's playing that game. When you surround yourself with more and more people who are just happy to see you do something good, or somebody else's page is like Facebook page is gaining, hundreds of followers every week and it's really going good. And I just feel like there's a certain amount of positivity that's come to the surface in that probably during and not, we're not post pandemic yet, but now that everybody's had to concentrate here a little bit more, I just feel like there's more community support that way than probably when you started, for sure. When you were kind of going against the grain, and so now when I started, I felt like a very nurturing environment, actually, where people are like, "Wow, I'm really glad to hear you're doing what you're doing," and with notable exceptions of people who got extremely territorial, but it was. I'm excited for anybody else who tries it after us, because I hope that we've created more of that environment, like you said, that's less competitive and more welcoming and more forgiving too, for people to learn as they go.
It's very important too to remember that sometimes the people who were there at the beginning of your process move on, and you can't take that to heart. I've had some.
Sure.
I've had some pretty big time players in the field move on and do their own thing from me, and I don't lose sleep over that. I don't shed a tear over it. I know that that's part of the business. That's part of what we're doing here. And we have to keep reminding ourselves it's not a personal thing. It's just part of the process of growing. And what was hard for me early on in the pandemic was the fact that other entities were learning this process and they didn't, quote, need to hang with me anymore. And because they learned. They learned how to live stream. They don't need to do anything anymore. So when you're not when there's a short period of time where you feel like you're not in demand, you have to stop pitying yourself and pivot and be like, okay, how can I use this free time now to create even more stuff and move on? It's perfectly natural to be like, where'd everybody go? And then it's what you do with that, which determines the future of a brand. I mean, I honestly, Richard, I don't know how many people follow me on Facebook. I don't look at the number. I never look at the number. Well, I shouldn't say never. The only time I ever do is when I'm going to like a business and they're asking me how many people follow me for like a sponsorship. Other than that, I don't look at a number. I don't look at it because to me it's about more than that. And there's so many people, especially pre-pandemic, there were so many people who were like, "Oh, I need to get to 10,000 people and all this other stuff." And I'm like, "Well, what if you don't?
Yeah.
Like, are you not gonna
Yeah.
like eat for a week? What? Do your
Yeah.
thing and be happy
Yeah.
and do your thing, and you will grow. It'll be fine."
Yeah.
So yeah, it's
Yeah.
I'm interested to hear because I was very pre-pandemic. I mean, I was like 2015,
Yeah.
like 2016 or 2017. I did my first live stream, I think, um, and then to watch you during the pandemic as starting to get to that that upper echelon and being like really hitting that top of that field in that way because you came in that period. I'm really interested to see the post pandemic, like you said,
Yeah.
who's going to keep like taking that baton and moving forward when I'm like the old granddad who's been around for too long.
Sure.
And they're
Yeah.
like, "Come
Yeah.
on, pops, come out and hang out with us for a little while," and that's fine.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, one thing that I've noticed with mine, now that we're able to do more, well, it's kind of scary because here in Seattle, like things stabilized enough that now we can, restaurants are open full capacity and we can kind of have small gatherings safely and that kind of stuff. So things are starting to branch out. Seattle winter comes and shuts down everything from happening outdoors because it rains for 7 months. But this transition to me has been kind of interesting because I stopped some time ago looking at the numbers and caring about how many people look at a post or watch a video. And there's times where you can have a live stream where there's 75 people watching and you're like, man, this was really good. The guest was good. We had this thing that was really good. And then 2 days later, you can get 3 people watching your video.
Right.
But you can't stop. You have to just, all right, that it is what it is. What's next? What's next? What's next? And now that I've noticed the door open from the more in-person stuff, I'm amazed at how much support there is. And I'm amazed at how that enables me to not care, to care even less about the numbers on Facebook or YouTube, or the fact that this YouTube video that I thought was amazing and still only has 9 views.
Right.
But it's like, whatever, it's done. I did it. And there's this group of people that are supporting another aspect of it. And it's going to have to change and it's going to have to evolve. So it is a fascinating process to be in the middle of too for the first time. Like, how is this going to pan out? Am I going to eventually not be on Facebook anymore because it's just going to fade away into history and everybody's going to be on TikTok or the new one, or are we going to be more traditional again where we do tours and talks and slideshows and so I'll be curious to watch this exact conversation again in a year and see what we didn't know about, because I'm sure there's going to be something that we just had no idea was even going to happen, good or bad.
Yeah.
So
I'm looking forward to 2022. We're almost out of 2021, so there's not much more I can do this year. And my November and December is like everybody else's. It's like, okay, I got to catch up with friends and family and do all this other stuff. But for my brand itself, 2022 is going to be one of those times where we pick up steam and start doing our monthly in-person events once again at the Gary Owen in Gettysburg. And because I walked in there on a whim the other day to have lunch, and they're like, "So we need to bring you back, and you need to get in here because you bring people in on a Thursday night, and we know you love being here, like hanging with people. So it's great for both of us. So we're going to do that. But I am pushing ahead with other project ideas. More live streams are going to be coming. I'm not giving up on the live stream format because I have followers in New Zealand and Argentina and Britain and all this. I can't do a live presentation in Argentina. So we're going to be, keeping that going. I'm going to be going harder into YouTube in 2022. Simply because I want to build my YouTube brand, build my brand on YouTube. But also, Facebook is getting really, really stagnant and unknown among the youth. And I want to be real viable among the next generation of historians. So I'm kind of pivoting in that way. I'm still going to have stuff on Facebook, and obviously I'm not going to stop until Facebook is gone, probably, or something wacky happens
Yeah.
with corporate at Facebook or Meta or whatever they're calling themselves now.
Yeah.
But YouTube will probably be the next thing, and in-person things are going to come back, including probably some collaborative efforts, especially with my friends at the Gettysburg National Military Park. We're discussing some options there for the future, and I'm thinking about branching out with my Presents series. So not, doing stuff with Gary Owen, but maybe doing stuff on the road with it. So might be doing that. So getting out there in the public, bringing the merch along so people don't have to order it online. They can just pick it up from me, and we can hang out. It's kind of like we're going to go on different gigs and do some stuff, which is actually, Richard, an idea I had in 2016. So I've been thinking about this idea for 5-6 years, and it's just one of those things where, like, okay, now it's time. And that's the key for a lot of people to remember too, is patience. Oh my gosh, you need a lot of patience. So 2020 that year.
Yeah. Well, that's good. It's interesting to see how your kind of past plans are now coming to fruition via something that was very much the opposite. All these in-person plans that you're expanding on now are the result of not being able to do that at all. Right. So had you been able to keep just plugging along, you would have had an entirely different direction, probably. Right. Or something would have stagnated or changed or whatever in that way that the reassessment of everything from the pandemic and all has just forced. I think that's pretty interesting. I know with what I'm doing now, there's a total shift in demand for different stuff for me that I didn't think was going to happen. And I'm sure you've been through this, where I started doing some of these tours just to get my chops with doing tours, and going to see how that's happened. And then that turned into people wanting speaking engagements, and now that's turning into this other thing and this and that. And I'm like, this is not at all where I thought I was going to be doing, but this is what people want, and I like it, and it's fun, and I'm going to go forward with these other things. And maybe Facebook, tails off a little. Maybe it's been maxed out. I kind of feel like it's sort of peaked. I don't know how you feel about that, but getting new followers and new likes on Facebook is almost impossible now.
I still get the notifications and stuff, and we're still reaching thousands of accounts every week, but I see it being the same ones over and over again, and that's no disrespect to anyone following either of our pages. That's nothing to do with that. It's the algorithm of social media life, and we're starting to see a repetition in the patterns, and that's telling me. And I'm a guy who loves charts. And I will chart out stuff, and I'm like, I'm seeing a lot of parallels from 6 months ago, and I don't know if it's pandemic related still, or if it's the age and the media coverage of the platform coming back to life. But we'll see in another 6. It's going to take another 6 months to a year to really understand it.
Yeah. So, do you want to tease us at all with any of the things that you have in mind? I mean, when you talk about, we could at least say things that you're going to do by yourself. I'm a big fan of Gettysburg and Antietam live streams, of course, because I like to see the way that you present it is great, because you're always so cognizant of the ground and angles and views and that sort of stuff, which is different than watching a licensed battlefield guide standing with their binder in front of the people and pointing at the monuments and the ground. So I hope you do more of that, because I just like your style that way. But what do you want to tease or preview?
Well, I would also like to ask chat what they'd like to see more of, because I love hearing from peers and colleagues what they have enjoyed and what they would love to hear more of or see more of. I definitely have that in the mix, where I'm going to be going out and we're going to be talking about topography and its influence on battles. I'm going to do a little bit more on environmental stuff. We're going to hit more places than just battlefields. I know. And, I know this is Seattle Civil War legacy, and we're going to talk about Civil War history and all that. But there's other stuff that I'm going to be covering, which are going to be a little bit different than the mainstream stuff, because
Yeah.
I'm seeing here out east, I'm seeing a little too much of it, and I would like to hit some spots which
Yeah.
aren't seen too often.
Sure.
I am looking at some museums to cover as well. So I'm going to be going more into the public history space than
Yeah.
just in the historical ground area.
Okay.
It's going to be a little bit different for some people. We're still going to do the traditional kind of like, Gettysburg live streams, or I'm going
Yeah.
to be going and doing Fredericksburg in December, which I still have to release that as an event. We're going to have on the actual anniversary of the 13th. I'll be there doing some stuff with my friend, the Unfiltered Historian. He and I are going to be doing some things.
Yeah. I don't think Tyler's watching tonight. I haven't seen any comments from him, but
he might be on Twitch. He's
on Twitch every night. It seems like
yeah. But the brand also, I can't really say anything about it yet because it's not a done deal, and I'm still thinking of the direction I want to go with it. It might be a second quarter 2022 thing, but the brand is going into a very different sphere than you're used to. It's not an OnlyFans account, but believe it or not, I actually have one. I just don't use it. But I wanted to get on OnlyFans just to have the tattooed historian taken.
Nobody just get the real estate. Yeah.
You're not going to take that. No. We're not going to have some other tattooed historian on there doing something. They're thinking it's me. But there is going to be something really cool coming up in the future. I'm looking at probably second quarter of 2022. You don't use it yet.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yet.
Jim and I have discussed some options for reading primary sources, which I will not get into on this stream. That's one of them. There might be a hot tub involved. It's there's going to be a really cool thing coming, and it's going to be involving the artistic sphere. That's about all I can say about that.
Yeah. So one thing I think maybe people who are familiar with my page or like pages similar to mine and like your page is the diversity of what you cover. I'm pretty, obviously pretty narrow in my focus. And most people are, especially if we're doing a lot of writing and that sort of stuff. We really got to kind of have a lane to drive in. So with your, or do you anticipate, because every month you look at your, not every month, but frequently your schedule of live streams will cover, lots of World War I stuff. There was the history of the peanuts that you did a couple months ago, the fellow that wrote that book, and there's constantly different stuff. So do you feel like going forward you'll do more of that? Because there's a couple. Are you familiar with the History Underground channel on YouTube?
Yes.
And one of his strengths to me is his video editing is amazing, and the mood he creates and all that, but it's very diverse. And yet and I know you have probably felt a lot of heat for this over the years or whatever, is that you can't be an expert in everything, but you can be good enough to get people introduced to different things and allow the experts to then have a voice on your platform. And I know that's been a key ethic and a key strategy of yours all along.
Yes.
So I hope that your plans include more of that too, is really, being super diverse with what you do. Because I don't think you can be, I guess you could diffuse it too much and then people really don't know what the heck you're doing. But I think you're pretty, the tattooed historian and Heckman and watermelon shirts and tattoos and whatever else is pretty well established. So I think you have a really good position to be able to do content with the peanuts related stuff, or World War II or World War I, or art, or I know trench art has been something you and Jan have posted about different times. And I'm like, man, you got a unique situation that you have an audience in a wide base. So I hope you're going to really.
Yeah, I had I realized that I had a strong position with just years of content and doing different things. And it really allowed me to, at the tail end of this pandemic phase we're going through, to kind of sit back and just, kind of regroup and think about what is the direction I want to go in 2022. That's where I'm looking right now. I'm not worried about the rest of the year because I have some great interviews lined up, and I'm just like, okay, what's 2022 look like? And I have a diverse audience, and I have some diverse topics that I have in mind beginning in January. And my hope is that I will get back to weekly interviews starting in January, and weekly live stream interviews. I'm obviously on Twitch like twice a week, doing gaming and stuff like that. But I want to get back onto weekly interviews on Instagram and YouTube, running them concurrently, and with a wide array of historians, history students, anthropologists, and stuff like that. Because, like you say, the brand was never, other than the initial start, what we talked about earlier, where I'm like trying to find the job next. When it kind of was like, well, this is starting to become its own kind of brand on its own 2 feet. It went from being about my work to what's everybody else doing, and I love to talk to people. And so I'm like, well, why don't we make this more about the other historians and their work? So when I bring these other people on to talk about whatever we're going to talk about, it's such a delight for me to interact with new people. And then when we go offline, sometimes they're like, hey, have you talked to this person? Because they're coming out with a book next month or in 2 months. And the networking thing. And so it's been a beautiful adventure in that way, in that I get to do something I love, which is just talk with people and have a discussion of an interview. And I want to get back to that on a weekly basis, where every single week we are doing a live stream interview. And maybe that weekend we are at a historical site, or that Friday we're at a historical site, but that Wednesday we're having our Wednesday interview. And get back to a sense of normalcy. And that way, as we get back to a real sense of normalcy, quote unquote, hopefully after the booster part is done and all that. So yeah, there is that plan already in place, and then there's more on top of that. So it's all in my noodle, as they said in Vegas, and I'm ready to go with that. And we're also going to be branching out and doing interviews on Twitch. So it's going to be great.
Oh, you can you? Because I'm not a Twitch. I'm not a gamer. I'm not on Twitch, but I've gone on a couple times during you or Tyler's thing to kind of just to watch and check it out. Yep. But it seems like that if as a viewer, you're only limited to being able to post comments, and that's when I thought, well, it's fun watching the battleships or the whatever for a few minutes, but then after that, I'm kind of like, if to people talking and it was just another live interview platform in that way, I think it would be good. So do you have plans for that?
Yes. The thing is with that, I'm looking right now real quick before we go off here. I can't pull it up right now, but on Twitch, you have different genres and different categories. You have different gaming, you have DJs now, so you can find any kind of music you want. I watch a lot of DJs on there because we couldn't go to clubs for the longest time. But one of the strongest, actually the strongest category on Twitch as of 6 months ago to the present, due to the pandemic, is something called Just Chatting. And it's just exactly like this. Only it's on Twitch. And I got on there, Richard, because I saw ESPN got on there. The NBA got on there. Formula One racing. And I'm like, wait a minute. Okay, this is getting more mainstream. Let's get over there.
Yeah.
So you can, when I find people who do history and gaming at the same time, as far as like they write about it or they do research for a gaming organization, developer, those interviews are going to take place on Twitch because Twitch was originally a gaming platform. Everything else is still Facebook, YouTube. But that might be where the brand goes in the future when Facebook is a little too old or it's a little too stale. Maybe we'll go that direction in YouTube, and that's it.
Yeah.
So
Well, that's interesting to hear that adaptability is in the future, because it's these things are rarely what we think they are. TikTok being a classic example. If it's not just kids doing the cinnamon challenge or dancing or whatever, and Twitch is not just video gaming. Like, that's what I kind of assumed it was. That's only been my exposure to it. But it's a streaming platform, not a video game platform.
Correct. Correct.
So yeah, correct. I think anybody who's thinking about doing what we do online, have an open mind towards every platform and spend the time. I don't know, what does Vaynerchuk say? 25 hours to learn each platform.
Yeah, at least.
I think his recommendation, just to get a handle on what it is, because even if you were on that one or whatever, that one's probably going to be the basis for the next one that blows up, and why being good at Instagram videos set everybody up to succeed immediately on TikTok. And those people are all because they just knew how to do it. So if you are doing this kind of stuff, constantly wanting to learn and look at the new platforms and try them out, and go watch some of John's streams on Twitch, or go Dan Casella, look at his TikTok, and just check it out, because it won't always be Facebook. That's for sure.
No, you have to find the next thing for yourself, because one day this platform is going to be the MySpace of the internet.
Yeah.
It is. It's just that's the way the internet works. There used to be a Yahoo search engine and an Ask Jeeves and a Google. Now we
web crawler.
Now when we search anything, we're like, let's go to Google, or let's Google that.
Yeah.
It's synonymous now. So the next thing, we got to find that. We're constantly searching for that. It's human nature. And I will say, since you brought him up, Gary Vaynerchuk saved my life, in that I didn't know what direction I wanted to go in life. And his story and how he presents his story was like, if he can make that big of an impact on people and be himself, I can too. And that really pushed the brand. I didn't know about Vaynerchuk when I first started the brand. I only learned about him in like 2016, 2017. But when I did, it was like an instantaneous, like, this is my guy. I understand what he's saying. He's hard enough for me to get the point across to me, and to be like pushing. And I listen to his work almost every day, because it's that voice I need in my head to be like, just go try it, go do it, get it done. And when I need to have a little kick in the butt, I go to Vaynerchuk.
Yeah. No, I've learned about him through you. I think is probably the first person that exposed me to his strategy, so to speak. And it's been great for me too, because I feel like just that idea of just do the work, just do what you're going to do, put it out there, keep going. Just once it's done, move on to the next one, and learn, and be. Don't be above anybody else, and defer to people's expertise, and be humble, and be open to learning. And all of that has been such an influence. And I've grown so much more by that strategy versus looking at how many followers per post and this and that. It's once I got through that, then I feel like even if those numbers stay completely steady for 2 months and don't ever grow, that I'm still doing a better job, and I'm still getting better results than chasing some of those preconceived things and failing on Twitch and failing on TikTok for a while. It's all part of this. So if any of you guys who are still watching, who have a Facebook page, or you follow John, which I know a lot of my friends are going to be following John, definitely don't be afraid to get out there and be not good at it for a while, because it's going to take time.
We all start at zero. We all start with 0 followers, and Vaynerchuk says that, and I preach it to people as well, because I hear people saying, I'm not growing fast enough, and I'm like, it takes patience. We all start at the same place, and just keep going. Just keep plugging away. If you're not growing fast enough, instead of taking those 5 minutes to look at your whatever, take those 5 minutes to upload some content. And that's it. I will say that YouTube has this feature that I don't like, and I hope they get rid of it, where you need 1,000 followers to live stream from your device, and I think that needs to go away. We're closing in on that, but I know that I need to create more content on YouTube to get those numbers. So that's what we're doing. So when you're feeling like you're, not getting your potential with it, you just need to keep creating and keep going.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And I also, I've become a big fan of really being thankful and supportive of the people who do support you consistently. Because if you're constantly looking for, I need 750 more of this, or I need 100, you'll neglect those 30 people that are there in every day that will buy your T-shirts, that will come on your tour, that will do your thing. So growth in such a small niche field, growth at the sake of quality of audience and content, I think is a bad formula, and I think people get caught up too much in that. And I did too. I was like, oh, how many followers do we get this week? And as soon as I stopped, I started getting more opportunities and better people and more consistent interaction without the growth. Doesn't affect it. So
I can't
I
tell
don't
you
know.
the number of actual friends I have in life, but I can tell you I don't ignore them to get another one.
That's a good point.
That's not how it works. You gotta keep plugging away, and you gotta keep creating quality content for the people who are already there. Like John McFarland constantly comes into my Twitch. Jay obviously is there. Dan shows up. You show up. I'm trying to create quality content instead of BS stuff just to check a box. And I think sometimes certain people do that. They're like, oh, it's the Antietam anniversary. I have to check that box. We got to go talk about Burnside. No, you got to talk about what you want to talk about and have fun, So, and your audience is going to know when you're just BSing your way through it.
Yeah. Well, and that's one thing that I've always appreciated. And I talked about the variety that your channel has, is that genuineness that you just, it's going to be the same every time. And it's going to be consistent and thoughtful and not chasing the anniversary of this and that to get more viewers on that day, but maybe do an interview about Snoopy on the day on the anniversary of Fredericksburg, and it's okay because it's what you wanted to do, and people respect that. And I do for sure with your brand. So
thank you. Yeah, and we're gonna bring back historians.
So all right, guys. On what's that one? Historians.
We're gonna bring.
What was that? Off the clock.
Yeah, we're going to bring back Historians Off the Clock again, which is our more laid-back one where we don't say where they work, so they're allowed to curse and do whatever they want to do. We always had fun with that, where people could have a glass of wine or a beer or whatever. Obviously, I don't partake, but my guests come on, they can just be themselves and relax. When we talk about anything, history field or research or whatever, it doesn't have to be about their particular work. And it's just a way for us to give you a peek inside of what it's like to actually sit with us at a pub and just talk about whatever. So we are going to bring that back as well.
That sounds awesome. I don't think I caught those original. I'll have to go back and look some of those up in your stuff.
It's been over a year since we've done one. So
wow.
It's time. We were going to, the last one we were going to do was on January 6th. And when the episode happened in DC, we canceled and we haven't done one since. So we're going to do one.
Yeah, sounds good. Well, hey, why don't you, for anybody who's still with us, tell us what platforms you're on. I know it's just the Tattooed Historian, pretty much on anything. OnlyFans included.
That I do have an OnlyFans. I'm not lying. But there's nothing on there, not yet. But there may be someday. I do have a Linktree account, and maybe I can put that in the private chat for you, Rich, and then you can Richard, and then you can send that along because I am everywhere, and it's kind of like if I can just give you one link to go to, I'd rather do that. So I will give that to you in there, and then I'll go down a quick list. I'll put in a private chat right now, Richard. I have when you go there, I have my merch store, which is on Streamlabs. We have some Tattoo Destroying merch there. Twitch, obviously, as we've been talking, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, Reddit, LinkedIn, TikTok, and then I have a link to my podcast as well. So those are what we're at right now. And in 2022, I'll be adding at least one more link in there. Possibly two, because I'm branching out even further and spreading myself even thinner across all these places. But I will say that usually when you see Vaynerchuk go a direction, look for me to do the same within a year. So that's my tip. Watch out what's coming in 2022, because the history field may not be ready for it.
Yeah. Sounds good to me.
But yeah, I just sent you the link in the private chat, so you can send it to your people there in the chat, Richard.
Yeah, I will, and I'll post it in the comments on the YouTube description and all that when this goes. Yeah, because we are streaming on YouTube here as well. So.
Yeah, that way people can see it all, and then they can go wherever, like we said earlier, go wherever you like and you feel most comfortable going, and hang out and see what we have to offer there. And
yeah, and try new stuff out. If you're a Facebooker, generally that you're following us, go to see what's on YouTube, because it's different, and what he does on Twitch is different, and what's on TikTok is different. So if you like what we do on here, it's worth it. You'll find some new stuff and different versions of what we do on these platforms. And I'm a much smaller scale diversity wise than John, so you can spend some time learning where he's at and all that. And get exposed to those platforms. And hopefully, if anybody's excited and you got a particular interest, no matter how small it is, Civil War or not, get involved. Give this stuff a shot. Make some posts about stuff you like. If you got a collection of stamps or something, make a page about it. It's fun and it's rewarding, and you get to meet all kinds of great new people, and it's a nice community to be involved in. I think when you're a content creator rather than just consuming on these platforms, I think that it's a worthwhile activity for sure.
And it can become a full-time deal, like mine.
True. Absolutely.
You never know what would happen with it. Your stamp collection could turn into your legacy project. Yeah.
And like Vaynerchuk says, if you are the best expert at that one type of stamp collecting, you can put your stamp on that world, and you can create that niche for yourself.
I literally could not. At one time, I applied for a job with the National Park Service, and I was denied the job because I had tattoos below my elbows. Now look at how many times I've worked with the National Park Service with my brand. Yeah. So you might be able to collaborate with people who you couldn't get a job with. And you never know until you try. And like I said, everyone starts at zero. You just got to try.
Yeah. All right, John. Well, thank you. And thanks everybody for tuning in and all your comments. I think I only actually shared about 1/10 of what people had to say today. So Jen was a steady stream of comments tonight. So thanks everybody for watching, and thank you, John, for coming on, and we'll post the link tree to all of John's various platforms that he's on in the comments here, and then if you're seeing this on YouTube, it'll be in the description. Like and follow everything, because we all need all the support we can get. So even if you go visit it once just to check it out and help support it, that helps our stuff grow that much more. So I appreciate all of you guys, and I appreciate you for joining us, John. And I think with that, I'm going to wrap it up. Good night, guys.